In June of 1812, the largest army history had ever seen was marching through the very heart of Europe. 600,000 soldiers, 150,000 horses, dozens of cannons. The man who had conquered half of Europe, possessing a power unseen since the Roman Empire, now looked to the east. The target was Russia. Those around him warned him, his generals warned him, history itself warned him, but he did not listen. This is the story of Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who rose from the child of an island to the master of Europe, then destroyed everything with his own hands. Napoleon Bonaparte, as known historically, was born on August 15, 1769 in Ajaccio, Corsica. Corsica had been transferred from the Republic of Genoa to France only 1 year before Napoleon's birth. So Napoleon, technically speaking, could barely even be considered French. His father, Carlo Bonaparte, was a minor lawyer. His mother, Letizia Ramolino, was a strong, disciplined, and ruthlessly determined woman. The iron will in Napoleon's character came largely from his mother. Letizia would say of her son years later, "This child will either become very great or die very young." Napoleon was the second of 8 siblings. His family was not wealthy, but they were considered noble. This nobility allowed Napoleon to be accepted into military schools in France. In 1779, at just 9 years old, he was sent to the Brienne-le-Château military school. He was constantly mocked for his Corsican accent and poor appearance, but Napoleon buried these humiliations inside and emerged harder, more determined. He was extraordinary at mathematics. He would lose himself in history, especially in the smallest details of military history. While his classmates played games, he drew maps in the sand. In 1784, he was accepted into the prestigious École Militaire in Paris. He completed a program that normally took 2 years in just 1 year. In the graduation rankings, he placed 42nd among 42 students, but in the artillery examination, he was among the best students in France. In 1785, at 16 years old, he joined the French army as an artillery officer. Napoleon was born right into the heart of the French Revolution. The revolution that erupted in 1789 turned France upside down. The nobility fled. The king was sent to the guillotine, and the army was now searching for its new leader. For Napoleon, this chaos was a great opportunity. In 1793, the siege of Toulon changed everything. Royalists and the British had seized the port of Toulon. Young Napoleon positioned his artillery unit with such skill that the British ships were forced to withdraw from the harbor. The city was retaken. Napoleon became a general at 24 years old. This was an achievement never seen before. But for Napoleon, this was only the beginning. In 1796, the Italian campaign transformed Napoleon into a legend. He took command of a tired, hungry, and demoralized army, and he said to them, "Soldiers, I can offer you neither honor nor wealth. I offer you hunger, fatigue, and danger, but victory and glory shall ultimately be yours." The soldiers followed him. He conquered Italy. He brought Austria to its knees. When he returned to France, he was no longer a hero. He was a legend. In 1798, he turned toward Egypt. He wanted to establish dominance over the eastern Mediterranean against the British. Standing before the pyramids, he turned to his soldiers and called out, "Soldiers, 40 centuries look down upon you from the tops of these pyramids." But the Egyptian campaign ended in complete military failure. British Admiral Nelson destroyed the French fleet at the Battle of the Nile. Napoleon was stranded there, but the news reached France late, and Napoleon knew better than anyone how to turn defeat into opportunity. Returning to France in 1799, Napoleon found the country in chaos. The Directory government had collapsed. The people wanted a strong leader. He carried out the coup of 18 Brumaire. He seized power. First, he became first consul, then the Emperor of France. On December 2, 1804, in Notre Dame Cathedral before the Pope, he placed the crown on his own head with his own hands. This gesture was not coincidental. The message was clear. I take this power neither from God nor from the church. I took it by my own strength. He prepared the Napoleonic Code. He modernized France. He built banks, schools, and roads. The foundation of French law today still rests upon the Napoleonic Code. On the battlefields, he continued to win without pause. In 1805, the victory he won at Austerlitz against Austria and Russia is still cited by military historians today as the most perfect battle ever fought. The enemy forces were twice his size. Napoleon crushed them in 3 hours. By 1807, much of Europe was either French territory or governed by brothers Napoleon had appointed. The fate of Europe was in this man's hands. But it was precisely at this point when everything seemed perfect, that the wheel of fate began to turn back. By 1812, only one obstacle remained before Napoleon: Russia. Tsar Alexander I had violated the Treaty of Tilsit and resumed trade with the British. Napoleon could not tolerate this. The continental blockade was crumbling. The system he had built to strangle England economically was failing because of Russia's betrayal, and he decided he would punish Russia severely. His generals objected. They knew what Russia meant: vast, boundless lands, brutally cold winters, lengthening supply lines. But Napoleon did not listen. In June 1812, the Grande Armée crossed the Russian border. 600,000 soldiers. The largest land force history had ever seen up to that day. The Russians did not fight. They retreated. They burned their cities. They scorched their fields. They left nothing behind them. As Napoleon's army chased an enemy that was fading away without fighting, it was consuming itself. In September 1812, they entered Moscow. The city was empty. And that night, Moscow burned. The Russians had set their own capital on fire. Napoleon sat in the middle of a burned city, waiting for a peace offer from the Tsar. The answer never came. In October, he made the decision to retreat. But it was already too late. The Russian winter had begun. This retreat became one of the greatest disasters in human history. Soldiers froze. They starved. Disease consumed the army from within. Cossacks and Russian irregular forces continuously harassed the retreating army. Of the 600,000-strong army, fewer than 100,000 were able to return to France. More than 500,000 people remained in the lands of Russia, dead or captured. When Napoleon returned to Paris, the empire had begun to collapse. Austria, Prussia, and Russia formed a great coalition. The rebellion in Spain continued. England was pouring in money and weapons. In 1813, at the Battle of Leipzig, also known as the Battle of Nations, a coalition army of 400,000 crushed Napoleon. This was the largest battle of the Napoleonic Wars and Napoleon's most devastating defeat. In 1814, Paris fell. Napoleon was removed from the throne and exiled to the island of Elba. But the story was not over. In March 1815, Napoleon escaped from Elba. When he set foot in France, the soldiers sent to stop him could not bring themselves to fire. One by one, they joined his ranks. He marched to Paris. The king fled. Napoleon became emperor once more. Europe trembled again, but this time the coalition was ready. At Waterloo, British and Prussian forces under Wellington's command were waiting for Napoleon. June 18th, 1815. The Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon wanted to attack in the morning. His general Ney stopped him, saying the ground was muddy. They delayed by a few hours. Those few hours changed everything. Prussian forces arrived at the battlefield at the most critical moment. By evening, everything was over. Napoleon was removed from the throne a second time. This time not to Elba, but to a small and remote island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. He was exiled to St. Helena. St. Helena was a piece of rock 2,000 kilometers from the African coast, in the middle of the boundless ocean. Napoleon was imprisoned here. Escape was impossible. For long years he dictated his memoirs. He tried to pull himself together. He personally shaped the image of himself that would pass into the history books. I ended the revolutions but preserved their principles, he said. I was the child of the people. His health gradually deteriorated. Whether it was stomach cancer, poisoning, or the illness of the damp island is still debated. On May 5, 1821, at 51 years old, he died in exile. His last words were reported as France, the army, the vanguard, Josephine. Napoleon's legacy is still debated today. On one side, the Napoleonic Code, which is the foundation of modern European law, a state system based on merit, central banking, educational reforms. All of these are his work. On the other side, millions of people lost their lives. Europe was burned and destroyed. Slavery was reestablished in French colonies. The freedom movement in Haiti was drowned in blood. Was he great or was he a tyrant? Write in the comments. Perhaps both. This man, who came from a poor noble family on an island of Corsica, shattered the limits of his own age. He proved that nothing was impossible. And then he was defeated by the impossibility he himself had created. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of the most brilliant military geniuses history has ever seen. But at the same time, he was a victim of his own greatness. The decision to march into Russia ended not just a campaign, but an entire empire. So do you think Napoleon's end was inevitable? Or could he have stopped himself before making the Russia decision? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in new videos.